going to talk about water. Okay, so the module there is water. Water is absolutely the most important element. We can survive without food for, they say 40 days, but water, I think it's going to be a lot less. So water is incredibly important to us and to every other living organism. So one of the biggest issues we've got in our cities is water, and yet if we look for examples around the world, we will find solutions. Australia, for example, is the driest continent on the planet, and yet if we go to many of the houses in Australia, we'll find that they have rainwater capture systems. Okay, they have connected to their roof where the rain falls, they'll have a kind of gutter, and then that will be put into some sort of storage unit. And yet if we go into most other parts of the world, we see rarely any kind of rainwater capture. In fact, in certain states in the United States, it's actually illegal to capture rainwater because you're stealing from the government. That's a small issue. But for the most part around the world, it is legal to capture your own rainwater. Your own. It falls on your roof. Okay? So we're just going to talk a little bit about rainwater now. Okay? So rainwater is slightly acidic, and for the most part it is safe to drink. It doesn't have the same minerals as water that comes from a river, okay, because it's been evaporated and condensed and falls, and so it is a little bit mineral lacking. You can capture the rainwater from your roof if you have a roof made of metal, from slate, from cement. If it's from tar, maybe a bit of chemicals in there, and from like grass or leaves, it's probably not advisable either because of tannins. Okay. I hear somebody say, yeah, but my roof is kind of dirty. There's some pigeons that roost up there, and it's kind of dusty, whatever, which may be true. Okay, so they have developed a system which is called the first flush system, which basically the first bit of rain that falls, it gets diverted automatically into another place, maybe just for into your garden, whatever. And then after the roof is clean, so to speak, then it catches that rainwater and diverts it into your storage area. Okay, you can store water in big cement like vats or plastic containers. I think cost for cost, then cement probably gives you an advantage over plastic. If you're storing water, then you want to make sure that insects can't get in, so you need screens to stop mosquitoes, for example, getting into your water. And if it's got a lid, it's going to help keep it clean. Okay, but fundamentally you can keep water forever. Okay, it doesn't go off, so to speak. Okay, an example would be Jordan, the city of Petra. Okay, you may have heard of it, and this is a place where the people of Petra were able to look around them and see civilizations fall and rise, that way around, and yet they were able to survive the fall and rise of other empires. Why? Because the climate is arid. Okay, so water is always going to be more difficult to manage in an arid environment, more important to manage. And there they had a huge rock, and this huge rock has 100% runoff. Okay, the water can't just go into the rock, it runs off. But what they did was they dug channels, and then they siphoned the water back inside the rock where there was caves, and then they're able to store the water in caves in like well system, and you can still drink the water today that was probably captured hundreds of years ago, and it's perfectly good, safe drinking water. Okay? So what are some of the other issues with rainwater? If we live in an area where we have high industry, okay, there's the potential for acid rain. So this is like where the pH is very low and you've got your umbrella and it's raining and suddenly it's raining under your umbrella because the umbrella gets burnt. Acid rain, it's nasty stuff. Okay, and here we can still use the water, but the issues with the water is it may have dissolved heavy metals, cadmium, mercury, lead, okay, because they get dissolved by the low pH. So what we need to do, we need to raise the pH of the water, okay. So if we raise the pH with adding lime to it, then the heavy metals will fall out of solution and they will collect in the inert sediment at the bottom and leaving the water again perfectly safe for you to drink. Fundamentally, rainwater is great as long as you can breathe the air. If you can breathe the air, you can collect the rainwater. If you can't breathe the air, you probably shouldn't be living there. Exactly. At least if you've got any choice in the matter. Obviously finances talk sometimes. Poor people don't often have so much choice in the matter. But scary thought, if you're living in a city where you really can't breathe the air. I know, China being one of the biggest industrial producing country at the moment, their air quality is famously bad. I imagine they're looking for all kinds of solutions. We look with bated breath for the solutions that come out of China. I'm sure there will be. So we talked about acid rain, air pollution. Fundamentally in a city, you've got all that surface area, all that hard area, the tarmac, there's all potential there for capturing water. And yet typically what happens is water capture is put outside the cities. It's put into big dams. It takes up huge amounts of space, ruins landscapes. Okay? And yet if we thought about it on a local scale, we could reduce the need for large storage units far from the city which need to be transported, etc. Okay? So think about it on a more local scale. If you're just not happy with the idea of drinking rainwater, at least you can use it for water in the garden as a minimum, or even for grey water, for using it for washing the dishes, whatever. Okay, so there's lots of solutions for rainwater.
Can we clean the water?
Okay, so guess what?
Filter?
The next topic is.
Okay.
It's surprising how I've got this kind of figured out. Okay, so the next topic is how can we clean up water? Okay. So let's put it to you guys. What do you know about how we can, we've just found some water. We've got no idea whether it's safe to drink, but we're thirsty. What can we do to, improve our chances of having safe water?
Boil it.
Boil it. Okay. What else?
Filter it with coal
Filter it with
or
charcoal.
charcoal.
Okay, so filtration. Plants. Okay. What other ways?
Microbacteria.
Microbacteria.
I don't know which one.
You don't know which ones? Could make the water worse if you put the wrong microbes in there. Okay. So what other ones are we pretty safe about? There's a few more.
There's when you use the soil to filter, like first big rocks, then tiny gravel, then
Okay, so
soil.
filtration
Yeah,
again.
filtration,
Okay.
natural, yeah.
Filtration.
Pills.
Okay, so chemicals. Okay, most of us have grown up in a city where the water was chemically treated. We're still alive. Okay, probably wasn't that bad, but it's not the ideal situation that we use chemicals. Okay, but chemical treatment for cleansing water does work. What other ways?
high technical cleaning system is UV.
UV. Okay, so I've had a lot of people come here. They've got a little UV wand, and they literally put it in the water. They wait about 15 seconds, and the light turns green, and apparently it's safe to drink the water. Kills bacteria and viruses, according to the manufacturer's label. Okay, so UV light. Okay, there's a lot of people will use the sun's energy to charge water as well, and kind of increase its cosmic energy.
Wow. Yeah, love it.
Yeah. Okay.
And the moon, no?
Absolutely, the moon as well. Can we think of any? Okay, so what about you live by the sea? Salt water. Okay, how can we convert salt water to drinking? We can't drink salt water.
Yeah.
Sort of some kind of like evaporation
Evaporation and condensation. Absolutely, yeah. And if you're using if you're the head of a city, you need a little bit more bigger treatment center. So there they use desalination plants. The problem with desalination plants is they use a lot of energy. Okay, which maybe is okay if you're in Saudi Arabia, you've got plenty of sunshine, and you can use UV farms to provide the energy for desalination. Perhaps it's something sustainable there. Okay, we've also got reverse osmosis. Which, in countries like Malta, if you've been traveling in Southeast Asia, quite often you'll find a little machine, and it's plugged into the mains water, which isn't necessarily safe to drink, but it goes through this reverse osmosis machine, and what comes out is safe drinking water. Okay, so that's another process. So we've got filters. Okay, someone mentioned filters. So we've got two kinds of filters. We've got filters that we can buy in shops. Okay, there's lots of famous brands of filters, and the thing with filters, often you have to replace them. Okay, so fine. Today there's shops open and you can buy replacement parts. So you've got no problem with shop bought filters. But what happens today, maybe in the future, that the shops no longer stock replacement parts? So what natural filters can we use? And the one Orson suggested there is the one one of the ones I'm going to tell you now. Okay, so we have a system of natural elements. The first being gravel, which is small stones. So we're going to do this in buckets. We've got our bucket, we've got our gravel in here, and our water goes in the top and it comes out the bottom. And by the time it's filtered through the gravel, all the large organic material would have been removed, right? So what's coming out here is sufficiently cleaner water. And in here we can have sand. Sand has a pretty high surface area. It's able to remove a lot of finer particles. And then finally we're going to have another bucket here, and in this one we're going to have charcoal. Okay, charcoal has an immense surface area, and it has the ability to attract bacteria, viruses, and basically they remain. So by the time, so the final bit here, this is where you collect your water. You've got your little drinking cup there. By the time it's gone through these 3 steps, your water should be absolutely good to drink. So we have this particular system. Okay, another one, if you're in the tropics or subtropics and you have the plant moringa, you can use moringa seeds, you can crush them up, and they've got a very high surface area, and again they attract microbial life and whatnot. And so you shake it, the water full of the moringa seeds, after about 10 minutes or so, and it will clean up the water for you. Okay, crushed dried moringa seeds.
Is there a translation in English for this?
Moringa,
Moringa.
they're called the drumstick tree. Like, you know, they've got drumsticks because they've got seed pods which are quite long and brown when they dry. The moringa seed is getting pretty popular in health food because it is very high in protein and anti-cancer, and it's got a lot of health benefits.
Alright,
So
it's a
it's
superfood.
a superfood, it's a nitrogen
heard of it.
fixer, so it's got a lot of useful traits. We've got some growing up there. Okay, in our houses, each person in the Western world, shall we call it, approximately uses 20,000 litres of water every single year. 20,000 litres of water every single year. Okay? Who here is a vegetarian? You're not vegetarian, you're a flexitarian. You keep telling me. Okay?
No, cuando vivo en Estados Unidos, sí.
Okay, because I asked, because just to put it in perspective, you know, each of us uses about 20,000 litres of water in our house, but 1 kilogram of beef production also uses about 20,000 litres of water. So if you're a vegetarian, you've probably got good reason to use at least a little bit more water than someone who's a carnivore.
More?
You're going to use less water
Less.
because you know the carnivore is eating meat, which requires a huge amount of water for production. Okay. So, but you know, in any case, let's talk about ways that we can recycle water from our house and perhaps use less as well. What enters our house is known as blue water. What leaves our house as wastewater is designated as grey water or black water. Grey water is like from our bath, our shower, our kitchen sink, okay, and black water is from our toilet. Okay, so how can we reduce the amount of water that we can use, and how can we clean up some of our wastewaters? Okay, so this is always a question. Let's just think about the toilet. Okay, the toilet. So you could, I saw a fabulous photo recently. It was a Japanese hotel. Okay, I guess they've got a water shortage in Tokyo or something. And so these hotels, they've got the toilet and the flush system, and they've got the wash basin directly above. So you wash your hands and the water is directly filling up the toilet, which is perfect, right? Very simple and great design. Okay. Some people would say that we should all have composting toilets. Okay, that we should get rid of water toilets and that we should go to composting toilets. And I say, great. If you're ready for a composting toilet and it's something that you're happy to do, go for it. But I think the majority of people are not yet ready for a composting toilet. They're stuck with their water toilets. It may not be something they could easily do in an apartment. Okay, so it's a case of a few people doing a lot makes a little difference. What we need is a lot of people doing a little thing, which actually makes a big difference. Okay, so how about this? Okay, a empty bottle, plastic bottle, it's waste, right? Most people throw it in the bin. How about you fill it with water and then you put it in your water toilet? Okay, the bit where it flushes. So that's 3 litres that will not collect anymore. So it's displacing 3 litres in your collection thing. If everybody did this today, it wouldn't cost anything and everybody would have an economy flush toilet overnight. How many billions of litres of water would you save straight away with 0 cost? Very simple and very functional. So my challenge to you, everybody, is Go and do it to all your friends.
Spread
Do
it,
it to your
yeah,
houses.
yeah.
Tell everybody about it. You know, it's something so easy. You know, and we just saved billions of liters of water, which is basically, it's blue water. It's water that's someone's treated. They've used energy to clean that water up, and yet we just flush it down and never gets used again. It's highly wasteful. So straight away we can save billions of liters of water, which would be a good thing. Okay. We've also got, maybe if you've got like an upstairs bathroom and a downstairs toilet, again the same sort of system. You're collecting the grey water and using it to fill your water toilet. Other systems that we could recycle some of the water. Okay, so we've got filtration systems, and we're going to talk about plants. Okay, so plants can be used for cleaning up water. Okay, an example here in the tropics are bananas. Okay, the banana circles that we've got on the property are at the end, some of them are at the end of our water areas. So your shower water goes into a banana circle. The water from the washing up goes into banana circle, because this is grey water. It's got some sort of, we'll call it contaminants in it. Could be, we call it nutrients as well. Okay, because the plants will see it as nutrients. Our dead skin is a nutrient. Okay, so the plants will accept that water and that nutrient, and what will leave will be cleaner water. Okay, we do have some limitations. If we start putting in a lot of heavy chemicals into that grey water, bleach being perhaps the strongest one, it will kill the plants. Okay, they will not handle it. So we have perhaps to change our habits of what kinds of chemicals we're using. Okay, if we're using a natural system, we can't expect to use bleach and everything will be fine, because it won't. In the temperate climates, the big one is reeds. Okay, the reed beds. So this is the plant that you find along the river. It's got like a long high grass with a bushy top. These are reeds. So if you have 1 meter of reed bed, that's enough to clean up one person's water. Okay, so if you've got 1 million people, you need 1 million square meters of reed bed to set aside land for cleaning up our water in that sense. There's also other organisms that can help us. So here's a little example. Go back to my board and my drawing. So we've got our garden, and with water, always it's going to go downhill for free. Okay, gravity works for us. If we have our house here and our water's going downhill, it's always going to be easier to clean it up. If our house is here, we've got to pump it back up that way, it's going to cost us something in energy. So think about that for design. So we've got our house, and it's feeding some little pools, and the water in here is black water, super dirty. Okay, but again, what is super dirty? It means it's high in nutrients. So certain bacteria, microorganisms will consume that nutrients. Like a septic tank is basically a pit in the floor, and in there anaerobic bacteria break down what is left from our bodies. Basically our feces is broken down by anaerobic bacteria. So the same here, we can use bacteria to break down the feces, the black water, and afterwards we can feed this to a slightly bigger body of water. And in here we've got crustaceans like crabs, and these guys are eating the microbial animals, and then we can feed this down to a bigger pond, there could be several feeders, sequence, okay, and this one could be a bigger pond, and in here we could have fish, okay, we'd have omnivorous fish. So the water by this point is much cleaner. Here it's black, nasty water. Here it's already been cleaned a lot, and by here it's good enough water quality that you could have fish. You could even feed it down to a final pond with specialist fish, predator fish, who need pure water basically. This is the place to have your garden, your vegetables around here, because if you're doing some kind of fish farming, often when it comes to harvest, the way people will harvest is they'll reduce the water level. Okay, you reduce the water level, and therefore the fish have less and less water, and you can literally just pick them up. So you harvest them all at the same time, and at that point you then have the silt of the pond available. Okay, all the fish obviously do their own deposits of nutrients, the feces from the fish, and it collects at the bottom. And so once we drop the water level, we can take out that mud, the silt, and then we can deposit it onto our garden, and it's really high in phosphorus. Okay, so it's going to help feed the plants in the garden. Okay, so we've got a natural, easy way that we can set things up in our own local systems to recycle our water.
The first black water part, is that underground, or is that like something we could do not underground? Like septic tanks are underground.
Septic tanks are underground, right? Yeah. I think, I personally would probably want to do this in a kind of closed enclosure.
Yeah.
Because, here we've got heavy rain and it would easily overflow things. So I would opt for some kind of, tank, and then have it fed onto a system which could be open.
Okay.
It depends, I think, a little bit on your climate.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you've got really heavy rain, then it could easily overflow things, and that's what happens here with septic tanks. People have these septic tanks, and badly designed, and you've got all this extra water, during the rainy season, and suddenly you've got rainwater and feces all mixed in together, floating down the street. That's a disaster potential. It's nasty. Okay, nobody wants to be, and yet that's the case of many local towns around here. Badly designed, and now that more and more people are coming, these systems are breaking down, and the people are doing tests and they're finding there's more and more feces in the groundwater, which is bad for our health and all sorts of things. So we're looking at solutions. There are solutions, lots of nice solutions. Okay. Where else can we get water from? I have a nice one for you. Okay, if you live in a place where it doesn't rain, okay, but you have a lot of cloud cover, then you have the potential for capturing water on nets. Okay, so you've got two trees, you've got clouds come down, and the nets across the valley, for example, will capture the moisture from it will condense on the net, and then you'll be able to take the water, collect it underneath. Okay, it's done quite a lot in Africa and places where it doesn't necessarily rain, but there's a high water content in the air, and the cloud comes down, or it's misty on a regular basis. They're perfect places to do water capture. Okay, let's talk about irrigation. Okay, so we're talking about how can we get the water to our plants. Okay, what ways are we What ways are we aware of? That's the word.
A hose.
A hose, perfect. Okay, so a simple garden hose. Okay, so channels are a good way to move water about, and they can be extremely effective. If you've got, like, for example, you've got terraces, you've got paddy fields, you've got water in a channel here, and one person can open that channel and can flood that field. And it can be, you know, one person can flood hectares of land very quickly, and that's a form of irrigation that works very well. And I've seen it a lot in Argentina. In the north of Argentina, they have it a lot. What other irrigation techniques do we know?
Dripping.
Okay, so drip irrigation. So what we should know that, you know, we've got our hose and we put the water there, and it's flooding that place. But like a drip irrigation is drip, drip, drip. So it's keeping a constant humidity. It's not allowing the ground to dry out unless we turn it off, and we want that to happen. It's just keeping a nice, humid, constant. You know, a plant which is given a perfect amount of resource, is not stressed, will give you the most production. Okay, so like fruit trees, for example, they like to have almost a constant amount of water. Too much, they're drowning. Too little, you know, they're stressed as well. Okay, but drip irrigation is a very nice way of keeping a constant amount of water, and it's very effective in the sense of the economics of it. Okay, it doesn't overuse water. What other ways of irrigation are we aware of?
Swales.
Swales. Okay, so
Swales?
swales. Okay, they are a subsurface irrigation system. Okay, for those of you who haven't yet done swales, okay, basically you've got your landscape is sloping, and we dig a capture here and we put a rise there, and this bit here is taken out, and this is on contour, so it's on a level. Okay, so now when it rains, the water stays here and has time to infiltrate, to refresh, rehydrate the landscape. And we've got trees planted here, and so these guys get irrigated as well. So it's a kind of subsurface irrigation system, very effective in, you know, regenerating landscapes and rehydrating landscapes. Okay, super effective. We'll go through it more in another day. Okay, what other irrigation systems? What about sprinklers? Okay, so put your sprinkler. Okay, I use sprinklers here. I'm connected to a river. I don't have a problem with, you know, using water from a source that's, you know, not digging from a well or anything like that. And so it doesn't matter too much that it's not a very efficient system. Okay, because a sprinkler is putting a lot of water into the air. So if you're taking water from a well or a finite resource area, then, you know, you should be looking at the most efficient ways to transport that water and use it. Okay, such as a swale. Imagine that you go, you know, not everybody is going to be a full-time farmer. Some people are going to go to work, God forbid, and some people even want to go on a holiday. Okay, so, you know, you want your garden to be nice and fresh when you come back. You don't want it to be like a barren desert. So very simple systems do exist where you could have a drip irrigation system connected to sensors, connected to computer. So a fully automated system where, you know, the sensor would say, hey, it's too dry, let the water run, or it's just perfect, keep it on, or it's too wet, turn it off. Okay, so, you know, a very simple irrigation system. I've mentioned before, in a lot of cases, it's not that you have to water, it's that you want to avoid evaporation. So by using mulching, by covering the soil with a mulch, you're greatly reducing the actual need to irrigate, okay, which is going to be a very effective way of doing things. So we're going to talk now about water capture in a dam. Okay, so we're going to do a very brief idea of earthwork on building a dam, a barrage. Okay, so for those of you who are paying attention, how much clay content do you need in soil to be able to stop water?
40 to 50.
There you go, 45 to 50%. Okay? Gold star to that lady. Okay, what we also need to know is a little bit about landscapes. Okay? So let's just have a look at landscapes to start with. So a general landscape would be a bit like this. Okay? It's probably a bit too steep. Okay, let's do more like this. So what we've got here, we have a convex shape, and here we have a concave shape. So you cannot do earthworks and capture water on a convex slope. Okay, the first point on a landscape where you can do water capture is where it starts to become concave, and this is called the key point. Okay, key point. So there and downwards you can do earthworks and water capture. So we're going to decide we're going to do our dam here. Okay, so what we're going to do, we are going to increase the scale a little bit. Okay, so we're going to have, let's say, our landscapes like this. First of all, we're going to dig a trench. Okay, and in this trench we're going to put our highest clay content soil, and we're going to compact it with Yannick's tractor, excavator. He's going to compact it down, and it's going to be really, really hard. Okay, and afterwards he's going to come along and he's going to excavate this bit of ground for us. Okay, so there's a big hole, and he's going to put it here. Okay, and now when it rains, because this is rainwater we're collecting, when it rains, the water is going to collect here. Okay, and it's not going to leave, because here this is compacted, and here we're blocked by this very hard compacted bit of clay. Okay, so this water will stay, and now we have a way that we can store water on the landscape very effectively. Okay, what we should also be aware of though is that what happens if it continues to rain. Okay, eventually if we've got a badly designed system, the water will go over the top of our dam. That would be very bad. Okay, because at that point we will probably have erosion, and if the erosion starts to erode our dam, we may have a dam failure. Okay, and all the water disappears, and anything down here maybe gets badly damaged or perhaps killed. Okay, so that is what we definitely want to design against. So what we need to do is give places for the water to leave. Okay, so if we look at this dam from an aerial view, so if we look at this bit here, this is our dam from above, and this is our water body is here. So what we should do, we should design places for the water to escape here and here. If you looked at it from this angle, it would look a bit like this. Okay, so the water is able to escape here, and this is our main dam area. Okay, which will be, there should be 1 meter difference between the top of our dam and the point where the water is allowed to escape. It's called a level spillway. Okay, and the water is passively leaving the system and causing no erosion as it leaves. Okay? So the question you've got to think as designers is, how much water are you designing for? And the only real way you can do this is by contacting your local weather people, and you've got to ask a question. What was the wettest 24 hours in the last, as long as their data goes back, 50 years, 100 years, what was the wettest 24 hours? Okay, they can say to you, hey, you know, in 1973 there was this day where 300 millimeters of rain fell in a 24-hour event. Okay, boom, that's your 50-year, 100-year storm event. Okay, so you've got to design for a worst-case scenario. Okay, so you can work out your catchment area, and you're going to work out how much water potentially in a big storm your dam would have to displace. And then you can work out how much that relates to in the space that you give for your water to leave. If you get it wrong, then the water goes over the top of the dam, destroys your dam, and you've just lost your investment. Okay? So again, this goes back to, it's not wrong to use machinery in permaculture. Okay? It's a case where, is it worth it? It's an energy audit. How much energy am I putting in and what am I getting out? In this case, a well-designed dam, which is going to rehydrate landscapes, is going to be useful for irrigation for many things, and could last for 100, 200 years and provide all sorts of benefits to the ecosystem around. That's worth it. You know, that's worth the investment in a few gallons of diesel for Yannick to come along with his, you know, it's a shame you live in France, mate. Okay, so yeah, just think about it like that. Water. So we talked about farming up till now based in soil, and that is the majority of the farming around the planet is based in soil. But if we look back at the most productive farming system ever documented, it's based in water. Okay, in Mexico City, when the Spanish arrived, they came across a civilization which was thriving, 1 million people city. Now it's much bigger, but 1 million people at the time, and they were thriving using a system of chenampas. Okay, and these are basically canals, you know, about 5 meters across, 2 meters deep, 3 meters deep, with all kinds of life inside, at the side, above. So we're talking fish, we're talking wildflower, we're talking plants, lots and lots of different species, all well designed, and channels of transportation. It was perfect. It was highly productive. A water-based system can give you a yield of 20 times more than a land-based system. There's very little research done at the moment on, you know, these kind of systems. So there's plenty of scope, you know, for somebody who's doing a master's in, you know, regenerative ecology or whatever, you know, the subject may be. Maybe look into water-based farming. You know, there's huge amounts of research that need to be done. You know, if we want to feed 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 billion people, we're going to have to look for all kinds of solutions. So water-based farming, aquaculture, you know, could be a really important thing for the future.